Let me show you how easy it is to design custom user interfaces in MindStudio for your AI agents. I'm going to show a few tutorials in the coming videos, and this first one I'm going to demonstrate is how to design a custom user interface or vibe code for a user input block. And I'm going to demonstrate this in this agent here called a data source query template. It's a very basic template on how to use a data source in MindStudio, where a user submits a query through a user input block, whether it be a native interface or a custom user interface. It queries the data source, a generate text block processes that response with the user's query, and then in this example, it's using a generate asset block to display the answer, but you could also just display it in a display content block if you wanted to. And then, which is also really cool in MindStudio, is that you could use a chat block to interact with that data source via chat. So, and by the way, before I go into this tutorial, this data source query template is an actual template now. In templates here, when you come to MindStudio and log in, you will find this section called templates, and it is the very first one right here called data source query template. So let me just very briefly show you what the experience looks like right now. And because large language models are non-deterministic, you will get a different experience on first shot, but you can customize it to what you may be looking for. This is what we're going to roughly design right here. So let me, before I, actually, now let's get started here. I'm going to try to wing this live and design this with you. So not to change this user input block here, I'm going to create a new one and then add this user query block. I'm sorry, user query, user input. And now I'm going to change this from the native experience to a custom user interface experience, and then click on design interface. And let me explain very briefly this user interface. There are essentially two sections to this. One on the right side displays a preview of your user interface as you're designing it. Note that this is only a preview. This is not the actual real interface. Once you've designed something that looks good and you like it, or when you have something that looks good but you may still be wanting to continue development on it, you can click on compile and it commits that current iteration to that block, in this case the user input block. This is actually a really great way to design because there are the large language model has a limited context window on what it can both take in and send out. So once you make a compilation, once you click compile, then you can leave MindStudio, you can refresh this browser, and then reset that context window in a new experience, or just come back in another day and continue building this. You'll also find that, and I'll show you where this is you'll find locations in this chat, which is the left side of this user interface, where you can go back to different iterations or versions of this user input, or I should say custom user interface, if you don't like it or totally breaks it or what have you. So this is a great practice to do when you're building with this. So first thing that we'll do is we click on Start Preview, and what this will do is load up the development environment to display the preview experience. And while that is loading, I'm going to change to a different model. So one thing that's really cool about this user experience in developing a custom user interface is this happens to be the model that is both the default model in this workspace and I think also for this agent. But you can change this. While Claude Sonnet 4.5 is a really great model, right now the best in breed model for coding at the time of this recording is Anthropic's 4.5 Opus. And the beautiful thing about MindStudio is that you have access to all of these models. Look at, we're just about ready to break almost 100 different models that we provide as large language models. These are not models for like AI generation or what have you. So, so I'm going to select 4.5 Opus. And one thing, this is just my practice. One thing I'd like to do is lower the temperature one level down from the middle of whatever that model is. Note that if you're using an OpenAI model, their range is, I believe, if I remember correctly, 0 to 2. If you're using, same way with also Gemini, if you're using Claude models, their range is only 0 to 1. So, but whatever the middle is for that model is, I like to set it 1 down level, and then I like to max out the response size because I'm probably going to be using it for doing multiple iterations. So now that we have this, when you see this empty interface in design, that means that you are ready to start prompting with this block and start generating output and previewing it. So I'm going to put in something like this. But before I do that, this is a tip that I've learned myself. You will find here that there's a setting here in MindStudio, and when designing the user interface, where you can extract a style guide and import a style guide. What these do is, once you have a style that you like in a user interface, you can click on this extract style guide, and it will extract it for you, and then you copy it out of this interface and save it in a text edit, notepad, what have you. And now you can access that to either import that style guide in another block, regardless of whether it's a user input block, a checkpoint block, which you can also design user interfaces for, or a generate asset block. But one thing that I do that I've learned is that I don't need to notice how this is grayed out. I can't import anything yet. I can one-shot this and provide that style right now when I am beginning to write this prompt. So you'll have to excuse now. You'll see that I've got all kinds of text edit windows open here. And you see that this is already highlighted because I use this all the time when I'm designing custom user interfaces in MindStudio. So you can have any style that you want, meaning if you have certain branding that you use, you have a logo that you use, you can design that custom interface. But what this is as I call a generic style, meaning it's an attractive looking user interface that is web responsive, but it has no logo, has no branding specific to any company or anything else like that. This is the logo that I use for doing my MindStudio demos. So now now the next step is to provide a basic instruction for what you want this designer to display to the end user that will be using this user interface. In this particular case, because this is an example to query a data source, I will write something like so one thing that's helpful is right now we're just writing a really simple prompt here. It's literally 1 sentence long, and then I'm about ready to provide the style that I copied into my clipboard. But you can provide much more robust styling or instructions here, and that will help you one-shot more accurately, especially for models like Claude 4.5 Opus. But for now, I'm just going to do this. Now, here's a tip that I will share is if you want to add more like paragraphs, like I'm about ready to do, like this, do not hit return, because hitting return will actually submit this to the MindStudio interface designer and start building on that iteration. Hit Shift+Enter, and it does soft carriage returns, and then I'm going to add something like, and then paste that in. I don't need to know what this does or how it's used. I none of it. It's the large language model already will be able to parse this, understand it, and use it. So now I will hit enter. And you will find here, like, Claude 4.5 Opus is really fast. So you see that it's building really quickly. And the large language model now provides you this is what I'm going to do, what it wrote. And notice when I mouse hover over this is the current version. Remember how I mentioned earlier that if I compile this right now, which I probably will, then the next time I come to this, if I want to make other changes, then it will know that state and bring it back into that state. In this case, current version. I can then go back to other versions unless I click reset chat. Then it will empty the large language model of this chat. And the versions are still there, but we may not have visibility to them. So resetting the chat, I think I maybe just said this, resets the large language model of its input context window. But for now, so this is what it's generated for me. And let's say, just for sake of argument, I'm going to specify remove the icon just to see how you can make changes to this. Also, so in this example, I'm also ensuring that the query user input is required. Now, MindStudio, using a user input block, recognizes what user inputs are required and what are set to optional. But you can do all different kinds of other kinds of validation in this user input block that MindStudio natively does not provide. As a quick example, suppose that you are filling out this form and you're expecting a sex, like male or female. You can add validation to that form to specify, make sure that one of the entries is male or female. If it's not, then add a helper text note that specifies, please enter one of the following values, or what have you. This is something that MindStudio natively does not provide validation for, but you can build into your custom user interfaces, which is great. So now I'm just going to click enter, and again, it will now interact. I'm just chatting with this interface designer. It revises the code. Again, I don't need to know what this code is. You can see Opus 4.5 is pretty fast. And now it's removed it. So this is great. This is a great way to very quickly design something. And I could continue designing this more, but for the sake of this video, I will now click compile. And it now commits that to this block. And this block is now ready for use. So this is a quick demonstration, quick tutorial on how to design a user interface with user input blocks. The next video that I'll do is a tutorial on how to do this with generate asset blocks, which has different parameters that you need to keep in mind when doing that. And I hope that this video has been helpful. Thanks for watching.